Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us in the first episode of Suffolk Computing Seminar Series. I'm Kakia Chachu. I'm a lecturer in computing, and today I'll be talking about the future of AI in business. So I'll just wanted to share with you some of the interesting topics and discussions I've been having with businesses in the past couple of months or so. These are very interesting discussions, and it's great to have the privilege of talking with some of the businesses in the local area of Suffolk to be able to essentially ease their concerns, but also address some of the topics of why artificial intelligence taking up some of its aspects might be a good thing for the business, but also where essentially some of the cautionary tales or some of the issues around them might lie, and what would be the best way for a business to be prepared, especially if they haven't really thought about start embarking on this journey and they're very scared about that. So let me sort of switch to some slides in just a second. Oops. So let me switch to my presentation slides for just a second. So what I'm hoping to cover today in today's session is essentially talk you through a brief overview of AI, give you a little bit of the definitions around its evolution and its next steps, and highlight the importance of AI in modern business, and of course, view some applications of AI in business as might be relevant to the local businesses and otherwise. And of course, trying to look into emerging trends and developments to look out for, especially in the space of where to get opportunities for upskilling, where to get elements collaborating to get some funding that could give you that kind of essentially edge as a business to be able to move forward with that. I will also be covering some of the challenges and considerations, and I'll be giving you some additional examples that go a little bit beyond AI, but using some of the other technologies around, such as VR and AR. And so I've got an example that I felt it would be relevant in retail and insurance sectors as well from that point of view. So without further ado, let's try and define AI and what AI is. So you probably have seen things like ChatGPT. You have tried to get instant answers around creative inspiration, rewriting, being able to paraphrase and rephrase things in different ways, but also to try and see if you could automate elements of your business, such as re-editing or writing from scratch emails. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Similar tools from a different provider, but some same underlying structure, such as Copilot, that also is using the systems, the chatbot infrastructure like ChatGPT. So it is only one in the latest kind of buzz of looking at artificial intelligence tools and essentially trying to make sense of it. So you also must have heard or might have heard of the need for regulation around AI and all that discussion that is happening at the moment in the UK, in other countries as well, around how can we make sure that AI doesn't pose a danger to human race, and also doesn't pose a danger to activities and other elements that we might want to safeguard, such as work, etc. So in that kind of thought, in that kind of thinking around AI, we have been talking about different kinds of AI. So you might hear the term highly capable general purpose AI being mentioned, or highly capable narrow AI being mentioned. And of course, ChatGPT, Copilot, all of these different AIs that take the form of a chatbot, let's say, we tend to refer to them as agents, so AI agents or agentic AI. So let me just break these down in a little while. Purely and very simply, the one in the middle, the highly capable narrow AI, is definitely something that we have achieved as a research sector, but also something that now is finding its way into industry products. So we have got really good foundation models that can perform specific tasks, such as being able to, upon given a stream, a feed from a camera, being able to draw bounding boxes around people or other objects. We call that task object detection. We've also been really good at very simple tasks, such as, is this email spam or not spam? So that was one of the very first classifiers that we have built. And of course, that has found its way into the modern day email programs. Another one could be your prediction. So as you're typing in words on your phone, you might be seeing that sentence being auto-completed. So that it used to be called T9 autofill, or essentially is the auto-completing the remainder of your email for you, so of your text for you. So all of these helpers, they are very good at performing that very small task, being detecting an object, or narrowing down possibilities or different labels into groups of them. So what sometimes we'll call clustering. So all of these capabilities can be seen in loads of different. So we have achieved that thing in the middle, the highly capable narrow AI, where we have to give it a problem, a very specific instruction on how to solve it, and it sort of knows what to do that. And it's very good at and very quick at doing so. So such models, especially with today's hardware and capabilities, will essentially demonstrate, I wouldn't call them superhuman, but I would say really, really quickly abilities on getting these tasks successfully done. And the more they are and the more repetitive they are, the better they are at this. The one on the right, the AI agents, let's say, these are an emergent subset of AI technologies that sort of fits in nicely between what used to be called question answering task, so the ability for a chatbot to respond to you in a sensible way, rather than it being essentially only an element that just give you a response and couldn't really carry on with the conversation. So conversational agents as well, they are called. So that task was really, really difficult to achieve a couple of years back in a kind of industrial, in a product kind of level. But with the emergence of generative AI, which you might have heard, we now are more and more capable of actually getting our little chatbot to conduct a conversation. What does that mean? It means not only can it answer your question by giving you back some sort of sensible response, it can actually remember the history of what you've asked it. So it might have a limit, of course, as to how many of these responses it can remember, but it can actually carry on a sort of conversation. So these tools, these systems, will use tools such as coding environments, the internet, or some of the narrow AI models to complete these tasks. So we have achieved that as well, really well. So the question then lies, and most of the discussion and the kind of sometimes scare words are happening because of the ones on the right, on the left-hand side. So the high capability general purpose AI. So we are still working, or we still haven't really achieved that, which most of us think. These are models that don't just perform a specific narrow task really well, given the data and given the model, but they are foundation models that can perform a wide variety of tasks. So they can not only mix and match the different libraries, the different elements that essentially the narrow AIs can do, but they can actually synthesize and move beyond these. So that These models, they are the ones that are currently in kind of research environments, not really released in they're out there for everybody to play with. These can span from very, very young, very, very novice systems that are of generic purpose, all the way to those that have very specific expert capabilities. And these are the ones on the left hand side, the highly capable general purpose AI ones, are the ones that are wearing those that are doing research in that space at the moment. So all this discussion around UK's framework for AI regulation, which you might or might not have heard, the UK data bill also includes, which is at the moment relevant and being spoken to in Parliament, is also presenting some interesting considerations around these topics. So I didn't mean to bore you by defining all that stuff. All I was trying to get to is really essentially that there are many ways to define the word AI. It means different things to different people. So when you go out on your journey to try and learn more about it, it might be a good idea to try and be a bit more specific about it and try and use alternative words. For example, automation might be another word, um, or machine learning might be another word. So AI systems are most of the time computer systems that are capable of performing these complex tasks that historically only a human could do. Reasoning is a big one under debate at the moment, what reasoning means and what inference means. But making decisions or solving problems, they are all thought of as things that only a human can do, as opposed to a system or a machine. But these days, because of the hype, because of everybody liking to say that there is an AI thing in their product, their marketing, that umbrella term is encompassing an ecosystem of technologies. So you will see things like terms like machine learning, so the ability or the systems and algorithms that we feed into a machine to try and teach it certain tasks, how to become very good at certain tasks. Deep learning, which is a variation of machine learning that involves loads of layers. So that means that we give data to the machine to try and learn, but we also break it down into smaller bits. And of course, natural language processing, which is essentially the study behind the study behind all these chatbots and this generative AI, especially those that are um, around large language models, so the ability of the machine to generate and understand text. It can also be used. Automation was one of the things I mentioned. So, if anything, most of these references I find in the literature, also in the industry these days, are all about automation rather than the machine or the system being able to do something highly intelligent. Data analysis, the enhancement of decision making through predictive analytics, but also I've seen it used as an element for customer service, so where you offer an alternative way for the user to access, for example, 24/7 support through a chatbot that never sleeps. Finally, it's sometimes about personalization. So, can I offer my customer, my client, a way to interact with my business and recommend my products to them in a way that it won't be a burden to me. So I won't really have to worry too much about the specifics of what would be a personal or a relevant product for my user. I can actually get my strategy up and running on its own by learning from the data. So quite a lot, for example, if you've ever bought something from online shops, especially those that allow you to see if you've bought this, other people have also bought that. So they would recommend based on other people's behaviors, based on other people's data, without, of course, you knowing who was that person that bought that product. So product recommendations, a big area of application. So I have sourced an interesting paper, and I'm giving you here the element there. But they make a very interesting point about what are most the hottest things in latest research around AI in business. So they in that paper Sestino et al. They cover quite a lot of interesting ground around both the kind of more difficult predictive methods, the recognition methods, but more importantly around applications and implications. So There's loads of work that has happened already around technical element of how to do something, the methods of AI, the data around AI, but the application areas and the implication of these choices or not doing something are, I think, some of the areas where there will be more and more discussion around in the coming years. So what are the emerging trends? Because one of the reasons why you are here is probably to hear about the future. So there is loads, automation, as I said, is a big thing. There will be loads of personalization discussion as well. And there is already something that's happening there. There's also loads of discussion around how could you incorporate large language models in everything you do, either by improving the customer care you offer or by essentially making sure that you uh, create new products that the customer didn't think they needed, but they do. IoT is a very interesting area when it comes to quickly getting data in on the fly, sort of looking into them and, of course, generating predictions, generating information from it, and sensor data as well. And then, of course, all of that as they apply into specific fields. So healthcare and finance seem to be the ones that are quite advanced in terms of how they are incorporating these changes into their flows. But of course, discussions about social elements, such as how will this impact on our roles, the way that we do our jobs, our upskilling capabilities, the funding that we will be getting, you'll be getting as businesses from government on sort of different things. And finally, of course, sustainability. We're talking about computer systems, both in terms of AI helping you make your business practices more sustainable. So, for example, they're digitizing things, but also the role of AI in terms of, for example, its own sustainability and environmental implications as systems that run on hardware and on electricity and the CO2 that they produce. So quite a big discussion there around what will be the implications on that front. Finally, but not last but not least, ethics, regulation, governance, and legislation. I think this is a very big area which we will see loads of things happening in the next couple of months. I have got some pointers for you towards the end of the discussion to try and sort of point you to the right kind of elements there. So I will go forward a little bit. I have given you in this slide pack, quite a lot of examples of where or examples of where data science and AI can be applied. And I will just leave them here without going through them in detail right now, just for you to sort of go through them at your own time if you would like to try and see if any of them are relevant to you. Very happy for you to get in touch with me to let me know if any of them would be interesting for you to know more about. So I've got application areas for public transport, application areas around improving health, application area around innovation in agriculture. Quite a lot of interesting projects are happening in that space in Suffolk as well. Waste management, gritting, you wouldn't believe how much science is going into making sure that the management of waste, recycling as well as non-recyclable goes into is happening in a sensible way. And of course, where to start would be what you would be asking me at this point. So you might be saying, yeah, it's all good and fun. Where should I start? What can I do to get things rolling? So first thing you need to be thinking about is, what data do you have, or what data is there available? At the moment, most AI cannot happen unless you somehow give it something to learn on, so some input, as we say. So moving everything to digital, seeing your business and how digital technology is integrated is key. And it's not just that, it isn't the kind of process that will happen once. You need to have that continuous question mark, continuous challenge, if you like, of yourselves and your business as to, am I following the right track on this? So digital transformation and digital maturity is one of the key terms around where, what sort of metrics or how could you measure how close you are to getting essentially AI and data adopted by your organization. The very good resource that I point out to businesses at this point is the Gartner report on the AI maturity in their model. It's a very easy to understand, very well broken down model. It helps you with a few questions to essentially go through where you are in that journey and try and make the right decisions to move on to the next. Of course, it gives you some pointers as to where you need next. So you should be moving from just maybe knowing about AI and having a vague understanding of what it is to experimenting, getting an understanding of what data you have. So your data audit at level 3 will be very, very important. And then moving on to level 4 and level 5, you don't just use AI to improve the operations and to improve and streamline the services you give to your clients. You also make new products out of AI, or you create new interactions and new experiences using some of these AI tools. How does it work? As I've said, you need loads of elements, loads of data, loads of inputs to go in. There is a process in the middle whereby the information is modeled and the machine gets trained. And of course, you'll get some outputs. They can be predictions, they can be a recognition of different objects, but they could be other things like text that comes out of, for example, a discussion or a conversation. And the things in the middle are always very complex. So the need to look into other people's expertise, but also to try and better understand this yourself as the owner of the business, but also getting people around you who understand how to talk about these topics and how to apply and implement them for operational purposes is a good idea. So where do you start that journey, and what would be the challenges you might be considering? So the upskilling journey, I've got some resources for you in the next couple of slides. But before that, let me touch upon some of the challenges that you definitely need to consider early on in that journey. So when you do put together your data into a sensible place, into a sensible format, you need to make sure that that information, if it's sensitive, is held in the appropriate ways. So there are restrictions, for example, on how you can store people's email addresses and people's information like date of birth, and for how long you can keep them. Of course, when you get your business into the point of where you have the data and you're now trying to train on models, bias and fairness in the way that you build your models are also important. So trying to understand what it is that you're trying to output, and of course how certain selections in the data might be affecting that are important. Just to give you an example, let's say we were trying to train a machine learning model that would help us determine if a group of people with their specific skills are good matches for the job advert that we are essentially advertising for. Now, this is something that's being used quite widely at the moment in the recruitment sector, in the HR sector. So if the data that we train our models on in terms of matching, let's say, work and job adverts to applicants, if that, for example, was based only on girl data, so data that came from women, that would have been a big issue there, because what if there was a male candidate that came in? You wouldn't really want to be, for the model to be recommending just female applicants there. So this is just an example of where bias and fairness is important. So how representative your data is and how well it represents the population is a very important issue there to consider. Another element is scalability. So what you need to make sure is whatever you do, don't do this for just this project. Think about the bigger picture, making sure that whatever tools you bring in, whatever connections you make, whatever integration with other systems you make, is essentially ensuring that you can go from very small to very big. So you want your AI, you want your systems to grow with you as you progress as a business. And finally, last but not least, balancing that automation with human oversight is very, very important. So it isn't just about the system and the machine doing its thing. we as humans need to be in the loop. So there's this concept of human in the loop that's been very important in the considerations of both the legislation and the research discussions around that. But make sure that there is always some moderation, some human oversight, and that you don't just let the system decide, because we have a loads of examples where systems would go on a tangent and not necessarily come back with the best solution or the best identification. So for legislation then, what are the things to look out for? There's loads of different resources on that, loads of EU regulation. I've given you here some of the relevant ones that you might find sensible, helpful to start with as a business. So the UK data bill, which is at the moment being discussed in Parliament, is going to introduce quite a lot of interesting new uncertainties, or address some of these uncertainties in when it comes to the data and how they are collected by different organizations, but also how they're made available for AI to learn on. The UK's framework for AI regulation is also fairly relevant. So that is not a data law just yet, but it's a good framework that's already been out there and is been helping the discussions around that data bill. Of course, this is not just about the UK. This is the kind of topic that spans across borders. So EU, US, and other countries around the world have their own regulation and their own legislation. So if you're working in an international kind of context, it might be worth tapping into the legislation around data for that area as well. I've given you some links here, and I will be sharing them on the GitHub as well. The portfolio of AI assurance techniques, for example, and there is a dedicated page for businesses and artificial intelligence that they on gov.uk that I would highly recommend you go and have a look at if you haven't seen them already. So just to round it up, what can you do if you are trying to get yourselves upskilled, or get your team members upskilled, and you're trying to get more funding for your business to learn and also innovate? So look out for announcements around this autumn's budget if you're based in the UK. There has been an announcement of about 20 billion for various applications, various opportunities to boost the UK science and tech. So this is a kind of interesting space at the moment to try and do innovative things with. There is a wealth of organizations that are trying to help businesses, and they do applications, call for applications, that call for events and support, such as the Alan Turing Institute, for example. UK Research and Innovation are another, or UCRI, they're a very big organization that do funding for universities and other businesses. And they have got a kind of aspect of them is called the Innovation Funding Service. So they do have loads of calls occasionally for R&D, research and development around AI, and also for upskilling. So do go and visit these regularly, subscribe to them maybe in your social networks, and try and see what they are publicizing in their announcements. Finally, if you do have a local university, talk to them. They will be very good places for upskilling. So they are very good with, of course, they might have their own courses that they're running already around AI and data science. They might be able to offer workshops, or you might be able to involved in activities around AI that are relevant. So there you might be able as well, because universities always look to apply their academic research onto real life problems. So you might be able to tap into existing groups of researchers and collaborate. So having access to this cutting edge AI research might be an additional pool of funding for what you want to do, in addition to you learning alongside them. But finally, don't be afraid to involve students in what you do. So work with universities to create internships, which will offer practical experience for students. And of course, it will offer you a fresh pair of eyes that will be able to look at this problem with you and be able to maybe give you that skill gap, filling that skill gap that you have. Finally, so I've mentioned some of this already for funding, but things like grants, PhD scholarships. Universities are very, very happy to discuss. Partnerships. There's loads of interesting funding opportunities that involve collaboration between a public body like a university and a private body like a business. But of course, there might be other resources, existing resources that you might be able to tap into. So there might be an innovation hub or a business hub in that your local university that would be able to help, and there might be opportunities to do some challenge labs or create mentorships and essentially tap into the existing knowledge, the interesting places of knowledge. So I'll sort of conclude that. So our university also has got a special place that you can go to. You can go to that website and find out more information, but also they have got a detailed feedback about examples of how they've worked with local businesses in that instance. I'd like to thank you for your attention. Thank you for tuning in today. I will end today's session here. But very, very happy to carry on discussing and, of course, answering any questions that you might have, either offline or through the chat on LinkedIn. So thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you found this interesting. Looking forward to welcoming you next week in our next stream.